Adrian Wojnarowski dropped a Woj bomb yesterday that had to do with your Houston Rockets. He tweeted out about 17 hours ago, Ime Udoka has agreed to a deal to become the next Houston Rockets head coach. Continued Woj. The Rockets probed the circumstances around Udoka's Celtics departure with the team and league office. I always wonder when you're hiring somebody who is extremely qualified, but has a checkered past, how deep is the probing? Don't think about it like that. Just think about how diligent was the digging that they did. I wonder about it. I bet you're looking to confirm your own opinion of Udoka. And what's weird with Udoka, as somebody who is a Celtics fan, his firing is unique in that it seems like it's something a lot of people do. And if they're qualified enough, they'd be able to get away with it. But because it's such a forward-facing job, maybe it's a little bit different. Anyway, continued the tweet by Adrian Wojnarowski. Udoka, who led the Celtics to the 2022 NBA Finals in his only season as a head coach, was dismissed after findings of an inappropriate workplace relationship. Rockets and Udoka moved fairly quickly toward each other after an initial meeting, sources tell ESPN. Udoka and Rafael Stone kept talking on the job. Both sides had some strong options in the marketplace, but a deal got done in the last 24 hours to land Udoka with the Rockets. I got to say, if this was Rafael Stone's plan all along, which I don't buy, holy crap. And maybe it was his plan all along. We're just going to play out the string with Stephen Silas, and then we're going to hire the best coaching option there. But here are the things that lured Udoka to the Rockets. Young talent, that's true. Cap space, yes, they have that. And a 14% chance at the number 1 overall pick. It's weird that 14% chance was as strong of a draw as it was. But okay, if you're comparing it to the other options that Udoka could have taken over, it's better. Cleveland might be a job that opens up after the year. JB Bickerstaff hasn't been looking so good with the Cavs in the playoffs. Obviously, you have the Raptors job open with Nick Nurse out. But I think this is an upset of a hire. If you told me that this would happen, I would have said probably you're wrong. I wouldn't have definitively said it, but I would have said you're probably wrong here. And as someone who has watched the Celtics and specifically watched them last year, this guy's perfect on paper as far as the kind of coach that they need. Because he's a player's coach, so there's some similarity to Stephen Silas, but he actually has a backbone. No offense to Stephen Silas, who did not seem to have one. It always seemed very, very nice the way that he talked about his players until that one press conference where he decided to basically like have a bit of a meltdown and slam the table and stuff. Too little, too late at that point. Udoka will light into guys. This is what Ime Udoka had to say about his coaching style when he was first hired by the Boston Celtics to be their head coach. This is back towards the beginning of last season.
The first thing would be a hard-nosed physicality. You know, you want teams to kind of emulate who you were to some extent as a player, and that's who I was. But if they don't have that, you want to help rub that off onto the players to some extent. And you know, you take a team like Utah, it doesn't matter who the personnel was, you knew what they were going to be with Jerry Sloan. And so some of that is what I look for, but also, you know, unselfish basketball, selfless players. And you know, I was around one of the biggest with Tim, you know, one of the greatest power forwards of all time, is probably the most selfless individual I've known, especially for a superstar Hall of Famer. And so you try to encourage guys to be that. And, you know, obviously Jason, Jalen, and some of the young guys we have are foundational pieces. And so just help them grow, push them to be great and achieve their potential. And they're all asking for that. And I'll be happy to obviously be the next guy to push them in that.
He mentioned selfless, referring to Tim Duncan with that Tim that he was talking about there. Celtics way more talented than the Rockets are right now. They are. That's obvious. I mean, Brown and Tatum had been in the NBA for a little bit of time too, and they'd also played on a team that has been a contender. The problem was with Brad Stevens, they just couldn't get over the hump, whatever that hump actually was, whatever that obstacle was. They couldn't quite get by it. But if you watched last year with the Boston Celtics, year began off horribly. Everything seemed to be a mess. But by the time Udoka really got the reins on that team, every single player seemed to have an established role. And that team plays great defense. I don't know if Udoka is going to be able to make all the players on this Rockets team more talented from a defensive perspective, but you have to think that at the very least, they will put in more effort. They will understand that that is a huge part of this game. They did not seem to even have a slight clue about that with Silas running the thing at all. And some more Udoka. This is him talking about Grant Williams, who anyone who's a Celtics fan knows this guy, while he has good moments, there are a lot of moments where you're just completely annoyed by him. He's one of those pests, but he's not even like Patrick Beverley level. He's definitely not Draymond Green level. He's like, I'll be honest, adjacent to Dylan Brooks. Probably less of an a-hole than Brooks, who has just been an absolute clown these playoffs, and specifically in this series with the Grizzlies against the Lakers. But Grant Williams is a frustrating player at times, and Udoka at one press conference was asked how he handles him specifically.
Are happy for him, but I think it goes to his head at times, and so they love to bring him down back to earth. But it's needed for us. He's a guy for me. I probably see some similarities in myself as a role player that can impact the game, and so as much as I hold Jason and Jalen to a higher standard, I do him as well as the rest of the group, and so his job is pretty simple in my eyes. And when he deviates from that, quick to let him know. But I think the team is happy for his success, but also wants to keep him in check because it can go to his head pretty quickly.
Keeping players in check because it can go to their head. I hope that is something that Udoka will do with guys who I think at times do get a little full of themselves. I would specifically point to Kevin Porter Jr., though I think Porter Jr. showed a lot more maturity this season than in years past. I would point to Jalen Green, who at times just seems like your token garbage time player who puts up a lot of numbers. And I want to see what he can get out of Alperen Şengün on the defensive end of things. Şengün doesn't play it. And it's one of the reasons Silas kept him off the court. What's Udoka going to do to get him to play on that end? And is he going to get Şengün to stop bitching and moaning half the games? Because I like Şengün, but that guy complains a lot. And then on top of that, can you continue the trajectory that Jabari Smith was going on at the end of the year? All in all, great hire. Really. This is one of the best moves the Rockets have made in a really long time. Probably since they brought Chris Paul into the building. This is a home run hire. I love it. Now, we have to ask the question about, but should they have made this hire? I'm not trying to justify what Udoka did, but don't the majority of affairs begin in the workplace? I saw some study that 85% of affairs take place there. And Udoka, who was with his fiance, whose name is eluding me. I know that she is famous, but he was with her for 13 years.
Nia Long.
Nia Long. She's from Boys in the Hood, the movie. He had a kid with her. So this is about as close to a lifelong partnership as possible, right? These are technicality terms, but it's not like he was cheating on a marriage, but he was cheating on his girlfriend. And he was cheating on somebody who was the mother of his kid. And I know there are some people listening right now, hear that, and you're like, that guy sucks. Totally fair to think that way. But it's strange to me still that this incident led to a season-long suspension and a firing in a league where I imagine this goes on a lot more than you'd like to think. It just became public knowledge. This is what the write-up about the, investigation into Udoka said. An independent law firm found that he used crude language in his dialogue with a female subordinate before the start of an improper workplace relationship with her. an element that significantly factored into the severity of Udoka's initial suspension. So he talked poorly to her before they actually got into what seems like it was a consensual relationship. Those investigative findings, which described Udoka's verbiage as especially concerning coming from a workplace superior, contributed to what became an impossible pathway back to his reinstatement as Celtics coach. The power dynamic, that word was thrown around a ton when it came to Udoka, associated with a superior's improper relationship with a staff member, was the primary finding and policy violation cited in the law firm's report, which was commissioned by the Celtics and completed in September, sources said. That's from the Adrian Wojnarowski write-up. He had an affair with somebody that was not as prominent as the Boston Celtics coach, a Boston Celtics staffer. I guess a woman who is a Mormon mother of 3, who is, I guess, also still married throughout all of this. But I look at this and I don't think that there's a lot of moral outrage about the hire, and I can't speak for everybody. I just know that this seems like something that happens a lot, and I'm not going to pretend to be super disgusted that the Rockets would stoop to the level of hiring Ime Udoka. I would question Ime Udoka's judgment. Like, you're looking for a hall pass on a celebrity significant other who is clearly very attractive, and that's who you chose. Judge me all you want for that, but I mean, if that's the hall pass, then okay, maybe you aren't someone who's meant to be with somebody for the entirety of your life. But this is a home run hire by the Rockets, and yeah, I suppose there's going to be some moral fallout. But when you're as rock bottom as the Rockets were this past season, and you look at the young players they have, the potential to get someone like Victor Wembanyama, how can you not be excited about this?